Hello,
Congratulations.
everyone. Welcome to the lessons learned session. We have Chinemeze with us. He passed exam today. Many congratulations, Chinemeze. He was with you and he attended almost all Q&A session. So he's one of those students who was very regular and committed to study. He followed the process, and I'm really happy to see him passing the exam. So we will be talking to him. You will be asking most of the question. I will be starting from first two basic questions. So Chinemeze, thank you so much for your time. Congratulations on your success, and thank you for being here and sharing your lessons learned. Let's start with brief introduction. Where are you from? What do you do? How many years of experience do you have, and in which industry?
Okay, my name is Chinemeze. I'm from Nigeria. Currently, I work with Data Sciences. It's a CRO as a contract research organization. What we do, in simple terms, we test drugs for pharmaceutical companies. That's what we do. And so I've predominantly been in the financial services industry before the CRO job, and over 10 years of experience. Yeah, that's a brief background of myself. Yeah.
Thank you, Chinemeze. All the aspirants are here. What are the three things that you would recommend them to pass the PMP exam?
Okay, the first one is, first of all, thank you, Amma. Without your guidance and coaching and mentorship, this wouldn't have been possible. I'm being honest here. So first one for you to do would be you have to read the books, honestly. Either you choose. For me, I read the 6th and 7th edition, and I also read the Agile Practice Guide. And then after that, I attended a Mars course, and then the Q&A sessions, most important part of it. So these things we do every 9 p.m. EST time. It's very helpful because it helps break down concepts and gets you to understand certain concepts. And then also the third one is to solve and study the mock questions, not just to solve, but study. If you solve and study at the same time, you understand other principles and concepts. So these are the three basic things that I did to get myself ready for the exam.
All right. Read the book, attend Q&A session, and solve mock exam. Simple thing.
Very simple.
Thank you, Chinemeze. My second question, how much total time did you take to prepare for the exam?
So I did the course in December, right? But after I spoke with Amar, I registered for the exam in late February. So that's a month for me to just prepare. So it took a month for me to get ready for the exam.
1 month. So one month you
yeah.
actually spent. Okay.
Because I remember one day you were like, if just go and register for the exam, you don't have time, you need a month, all you need is a month to do it. I was like, okay, I just registered for the exam. It took a month to get ready for it.
All right, thank you. So that's all from my side. I think these are two important questions. Anyone from the participants, if you want to ask anything to Chinemeze, feel free to ask.
I think I just congrats, Chinemeze. This is Mohan, by the way. I just have one question. So I've seen you as well in these classes, but what I struggle with is having the right amount of confidence to know that, you know what, I'm prepared for taking the test, right? So at what point where you thought, okay, you know what, I'm good, and I think I can go take the test?
So
and how did you get that confidence, I guess?
And so honestly, what helped me, two things helped me aside just studying, right? At first one is the Q&A sessions. I started with averaging 5, 6, right? And then I progressed to 7, 8 consistently. And then I knew that, okay, I was getting better. And then I started looking at the mock questions, would be 65, 70, and I progressed also to 75, 80, 85. That was when I knew that I was ready and very confident to take the exam. And then also I started, if I come across certain concepts, the stock, right? I understand the concepts. I don't have to be wary of the concepts. I could, just concepts, to get to stick with me. And then I knew that, okay, I'm able to understand certain concepts and the approaches and stuff like that.
Thank you. And one more question, if you don't mind, is in the exam, were there any specific questions like which test your knowledge of, I'm just making it up, inputs, outputs, tools and techniques for a process? Or was it
Yes.
all situational based kind of questions, 99% of
Mostly situational, but definitely some questions about tools and techniques, processes are also there. But they're also going to ask you in a kind of situational manner. So in a situation, what would you do? What technique would you use to do that? And then it's very important if you're taking the exam to, when you read the question, to understand the phase of the project. If it's initiation, if it's planning, if it's executing, if it's monitoring and control. So you have to, it's very important. It helps you understand what the answer should be.
Chinemeze, that's Rich. Congratulations, first and
Thank
foremost.
you.
So my question is like you said, you've read the 6th edition and the 7th edition prior to taking a Mars class. Were the questions, I'm assuming that the questions are kind of leaning more towards the 7th edition. Is that a correct assumption with the way that the test is framed? Or are they still drawing a lot of information from the 6th edition? Because I know the ITTOs are not a thing anymore. The way the knowledge areas are all written differently. Like the structure of the 7th edition is completely different than the 6th edition. So I was just wondering, in your experience with dealing with the questions, what did you feel that you drew more off of?
Okay, so I would say like 75 to 80%, a rough estimation here, of the questions had to do with hybrid and agile methodologies, right? Almost 80%, yeah, hybrid and agile. So hybrid, especially, a lot of questions are hybrid. So what you should do for me, if should be to understand the concepts and how to tailor, how to use tailoring to tailor these two approaches to suit your project objectives. So understand the concept of tailoring, because a lot of questions came from tailoring, being able to combine different approaches to take on a project or to solve problems. So I think anyone you are reading, you can find that in 6th edition, find that in 7th edition, just read tailoring and understand that concept a lot. It helps.
Thank you.
All right. Anybody else with any question? So Chinemeze, did you take the exam online at home or at the exam center? And what was your experience?
Exam center. It was good. It was seamless. It was very easy. I just came in, checked in, printed my ID card, and they just checked me into the center. And it was very easy, seamless, and it was very quiet also. So I didn't regret going to the center. It would have been a lot of distractions for me taking it at home. So I'm happy I went in to take it there.
All right. And how did you manage time during the exam?
Okay, so this is for me. When I finished the exam, maybe it was a wrong approach from my end. When I finished the exam, I still had 40 minutes left. So I was like, okay, so something must be wrong, and there's no way I should have 40 minutes left. So I panicked a bit. I was like, oh no. So I went back and I started going through, reviewing all my questions. But I took the 10 minutes break. But a trick here for me would be to tell people, once you see the question, the first thing you should do, take your time to read the question. You can spend 40 seconds on the question. That's the most important thing. If you don't read the question correctly and you just go to the options, you're going to come back to the question and you're going to spend more time. So it's easier, it's better for you to read the question. If you're going to spend 50 seconds on the question, please do it. Make sure you understand the question very well and then go to the options. It's going to help you. But if you read the question, just if you go through the question without understanding the question and you go to choose the answers, I can guarantee you're going to go back to the question and you're going to spend almost 2 minutes doing that. So take your time and read the question, understand what the question is asking, and then go and look at the options. So that's how I manage my time. So I took my time to read the questions, and then I realized that selecting the answers will be a bit easier, like 10 seconds.
Correct. So yes, on average, you have 76 seconds for each question. And total time is 230 minutes, 3 hours and 50 minutes. And in 3 hours and 50 minutes, you need to respond to 180 questions. So on average, 77 minutes for each section. And in each section, you have 60 questions. So 1 to 60 questions, spend 75 to 80 minutes, means 77 minutes, then second 77, and then third 77, 70. So keep it in your mind. Do not spend more than 75 to 80 minutes, on each section. And one more thing, when you are in section 1, after that, you will be having a break. Once you move on or you are in break, you can't go back to section 1. That's very important. So one of the students, he was of the opinion, like after the break, he would come back and review session 1 and then make some changes, but you can't do that, okay? So when section 1 is over, then the break, then section 2, you can't go back. So that's very important. Okay, Chinemeze, did you see any question in the exam in which you had to do some calculations?
No. So I collected a calculator from them, but I didn't use it. But there are questions on end value management, but I didn't need calculators to answer that. It's just the CPI and PI, what it means.
All right, correct. So you can expect questions from earned value analysis. So you need to have understanding what is cost variance, what is schedule variance, what is SPI, what is CPI. If SPI is positive or greater than 1, what does it mean? Less than 1, what does it mean, right? So you should have that understanding. Okay. Chinemeze, did you see any question in the exam in which you need to do drag and drop?
A lot, about 6. Yes.
6.
6.
So that is also very important. Students are facing problems in drag and drop. So what is drag and drop? You will be having 5 or 6 terminologies in first column and 5 or 6 statements in the next column. And they are randomly placed. So you need to drag right terminology on top of right definition. So that is challenging, right? So for that, you need to understand definition. So for example, what is interviews? What is focus groups? What is nominal group? What are surveys, right? Or for example, we talked about various risk management strategies. So you need to understand what is transfer, what is escalation, what is risk avoidance, what is risk mitigation. And similarly, we talked about conflict resolution strategies. What is collaboration? What is smoothing? What is accommodating? What is avoiding, right? So you'll see these terminologies on one side and relevant statement on the other side, randomly placed. So you need to drag and drop. So that is also very important from exam perspective. So one of the student, he took exam 3 days ago, he passed, and he was saying that those were really, really challenging when it comes to matching or using drag and drop. So that is also very important. For that, you need to understand definitions. Okay, so Chinemeze, did you see anything in the exam that we couldn't cover during the course or during these sessions, or you couldn't read or find in the book?
Yes, about 2 or 3 times that I didn't understand what they meant, and I've never seen those terms before. So I don't know if I can tell if I passed that particular question or not, but those terms are strange to me. About 2 or 3 new terms that I've never seen before.
Absolutely. So you can expect 1 or 2 questions. So that's why I'm adding some new questions in the mock exam. As you see, the first question, we discussed a new framework. And in the previous session, we talked about Hawthorne effect. That was a new concept for you. So I'm intentionally adding such concepts. So if you see questions relevant to that, so you don't feel like you don't understand anything. Right. So any question from the participants? Anyone, please? If you want to ask anything to Chinemeze, you can.
So for the question, I want to add something. You know, you always say two things you always talked about that actually helped me during the exam. And one thing, first one is to understand that escalation should always be the last resort and always negotiate conflict resolutions first. So there's a lot of questions about that, how to manage conflict, what to do, when to escalate. And so just understand that before you escalate, that should be the last resort. And you also have to negotiate conflict resolutions first. And the second one is always analyze first to get information or data before making decisions. Very important. So whenever you see any question, just look at the first basis of analysis, getting a detailed information before you make decisions. So it also helped me to answer the questions. So yeah.
Yes, absolutely. And I think this is what we have been discussing in almost every session. Analyze first, escalation is the last resort, right? And if you follow this, you would be able to answer 20 to 30 questions correctly. And I have shared 25 good practices with you, if you recall. If you go through those, I can guarantee you can solve around 30 to 40 questions easily. Some guidelines, some best practices, right? Focus on collaboration, focus on involvement, have face-to-face communication, do not escalate, go for the analysis, try to understand the situation, do not exclude anyone. There shouldn't be any bias in the process. First of all, identify all the possible options, right? So if you follow those, then almost 25% of the exam would be very easier for you. And one student, he passed exam couple of days, he was saying there were a lot of questions regarding leadership, people management, stakeholders engagement. So if you have grip in this area, then you would be able to answer the question correctly. And from session 11 to today's 27 sessions, 17 sessions, we have been discussing people management. If you're not feeling confident, go back and review these 17 sessions. I think if somebody understands these 170 concepts, then exam would be very easier. Exam won't be an issue. So go back, review these questions again. This would be really helpful to you. All right. Anybody else with another question?
Chimenez. So I am at a point right now where I am overthinking every question that comes across my path. How did you overcome that hurdle, especially when you're going like 4 or 5, getting questions right, 6, 7, getting questions right? How are you able to just identify in the mock exams and how to, where you're, I don't know if you overthink, but I'm at the point right now where it's just like, I swear Amar's out to get me. So, and it's at the, but I understand, like, even after tonight, there were some questions that I can see that I'm processing things a little bit better. So was that a problem for you? How did you overcome it? How did Amar's prep work apply to prepping you for the exam and able to identify the simpler questions from the tougher questions?
Okay, so I would say, Richard, what I would tell you is, if you do well in these Q&A sessions, if you're doing 7, 8, Amar's questions are trickier than the real exam questions. So I didn't see any confusing words or too much English trying to confuse me. They were just clear and straight to the point, right? So Amar's questions were a bit trickier. Amar's questions get you to think, to think a lot, right? And which is good because it helps you to, get to understand the concepts. So if you do well here, if you solve these questions and understand the concepts, and during the real exam, the questions are going to be very clear. They're not going to be confusing at all. I can guarantee you that. What I saw, most of them were not confusing, just straight to the point questions. So you definitely are going to know the answers if you understand the concept. So it wouldn't be confusing for you. As long as you understand the concept, the answers will be very clear.
Okay, so in your industry, what project management techniques are primarily, what project management techniques do you primarily use? What methodologies do you primarily use?
Waterfall.
Waterfall, yeah.
Traditional.
So yeah, because I just I just spent the time reading the Agile Practice Guide because it was a complete blind spot. I didn't understand any of it. So now I'm actually going through the 7th edition now. So, like I said, thank you for the information. It's just, I can see progress coming, and I like.
No, don't think about it. Don't think too much of it. Trust me. Just do
All right.
study the mock questions, right? Just do as much as you can. If you're going to do 500, please take your time and do that. If you're going to do as much as you can. Study, not just answer, study the questions. For anyone that is clear, go back to that concept, study. So you do understand. Once you study it, and then if you're doing 75, 80, 75, 70, trust me, you're good.
Okay, thank you. One more thing. How are you keeping all this information straight in your head? I mean, like you said, you're primarily a waterfall guy. You've had to go through the Agile Practice Guide. Like I'm going through here, and I'm going to end up having to read these books a couple times to firmly grasp this stuff. So what kind of study techniques did you use to keep all this stuff straight in your mind to where you're actually gaining the concepts along with Amar's questions, like as you're studying through the guides, are there any techniques behind the scenes that you use to help keep that stuff like fresh in your mind?
Okay, so what I would say is, when I read the Agile Practice Guide, it's not a lot of a lot of pages. It's not that much, right? So I read that, and the more you study more questions, the more you get to understand how how the terms and concepts work. Because you're going to see, even the more questions, you're going to see a lot of agile questions, a lot of hybrid questions, a whole lot of them. Almost all the terms in that book actually reflected in the mock questions. Can't think of any other thing that I didn't see in the mock questions. So that's why I say don't solve the mock questions, study the mock questions. So as you're solving, you're studying, you're looking at it, what is this thing? You go back to the book and read it up. And the more you do that, trust me, you might think you won't understand it, but when you see that there on the book, it will come back to you. Represent.
All right. Before Mary asks question, I would like to answer Richard's question. So Richard, in the exam, you won't see a lot of technicalities from Agile perspective. Most of the question would be generic: leadership, self-organization, team management, communication, negotiation. So you won't see tricky question regarding technicalities of Agile, what exactly the Agile process is, right? So don't worry about that. If you understand Agile, basic understanding, like how many ceremonies do we have, what's the simple process do we follow, what's the difference between Agile and waterfall. So simple generic understanding is sufficient to pass the exam. You don't need to go into a lot of detail from Agile perspective.
So I think where I was getting hung up is like the difference between incremental delivery, iterative delivery, and how some of the terms, like I think that granted they all cover agile, but they all mean different things. Adaptive processes, and I did not fully understand that. I always thought that hybrid was just an approach where it's just some waterfall with some agile, but no, they said you could use some iterative and some agile techniques, and it's both the same thing. It'll be a hybrid thing. It's not completely agile, or at least that's what the guide says. And I did not understand, like, when the Kanban board, like I didn't understand work in progress and things of that nature. And I remember it from one of your sessions, but I just wanted to get a better understanding. That way that knowledge is just kind of there. So if that question does get asked, I will understand what a flow-based agile looks like. I understand what iterative-based agile looks like. I understand what incremental-based agile or what's the other one? Scrum agile. So I understand that, but there's such a blind spot. And now that I can see how it gets used in my industry, I can identify how agile gets used. And I don't think anybody really understands that. They just do it. So it was just, it's like I said, it was good to have that knowledge. Now I'm just going through the 7th edition.
Richard, for this, use my notes, right? I have, explained all of these concepts in detail. If you see, this is the Agile page. And you can see all the details here with interactive flowcharts. So this is what you're asking: what is incremental, what is iterative, what is predictive, what is agile? And you can see a lot of, graphs, a lot of content that could help you understand each and everything that you need to pass the exam. So this is all about various techniques that you use. If you understand this, I don't think you need any other thing apart from this. So this basic knowledge is sufficient to pass the exam. So go through these notes again. This would help you a lot. And if you're not able to understand any specific terminologies, you can read it. If you're still not able to understand, you can discuss with me. And I'm also thinking to conduct a session on, Agile. So I will be having a 1 hour or 2 hour session in which we will be discussing Agile once again. So a lot of students are facing problems, so we can have that. But use these notes, these would be helpful to you. Okay, Mary?
Yes, my question is more time-wise because I work every day and it takes me time, like in the afternoon or in the evening when I'm mostly tired, and so on. So just maybe Amar can also answer me, but also Chinemeze, if you can be if you know, like how many hours took you for these mock-up tests from Amar, because it looks like there are 1,500 or 20.
Okay, so for me, it's talking about the mock questions, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it takes time, really. So you have to give it time to study the questions, not just to solve it. I keep on repeating that. I didn't solve the questions, I studied the questions, right? So every day I was doing almost, say, 3 or 4 hours after work, just on the questions, on the mock questions. So I was studying the questions. And trust me, every concept you can think of, 90% are in that question, in those mock questions. So but you need time to study those questions.
Okay.
All the concepts are there represented. And then the more you study the questions, they come up again, and then you get understanding after you've gone back to look at the concept and understand it better. They keep on coming back, and then they get to stick. So you have to give it time to study the more questions. There's no, you have to study the more. You have to give it.
So just to add something to Mary's question, you need 70 to 90 hours of dedicated study to pass this exam, okay? 20-30 hours to read the book, and 30 to 40 hours for the mock exams, right? So this is what you need to keep in your mind. If you want to solve 1,500 to 2,000 questions, you need to spend 30 to 40 hours. So that's the time that you need. All right, I think we have discussed most of the question. One question is from Shri, it's for Chinemeze. Chinemeze, how lengthy were the questions in terms of, words or word limit? If you can compare them with our mock exams.
I think the most there would be 4 lines. So very short questions, but the most was like 4 lines, not very lengthy. That's why I say the questions weren't confusing at all. If you understand the concept, not confusing. If you do not understand the concept, nothing. So questions weren't the problem. It's the understanding that was the problem for me.
Yes, absolutely.
So they were like 2-3 liners, worse 4 liners.
Absolutely. So right now, the length of questions that we are having in these mock exams, it is almost similar to the real exam. In the first 10 lessons, questions were slightly lengthy, but right now, whatever length we are having, that is exactly similar to mock exam. All right, I think we have discussed everything. One last suggestion from my side is stay confident, stay consistent, and just do it. Do not drag it, right? You can pass exam in 10 days. You can pass exam in 15 days. You can pass exam in 20 days. You just need to spend 60, 70 hours of dedicated studies. Now it's up to you how you manage your time according to your schedule. And this is based on my experience. I'm not just saying in the air. This is based on my recent experience. Students have passed exam right after the course in 5 days, in 10 days, in 15 days, in 20 days. That's up to you. Just do it. Do not drag it, right? A lot of students, what they do is they just drag it. They don't feel confident. They keep on dragging. Don't do that. Just do it. Set a target like you will be writing the exam in next 30 days. That's it. And just do it. If you keep on thinking when I would be ready, you would keep on thinking. Schedule your exam. That's the first thing that you need to do. Schedule your exam. Set a target. Once you schedule your exam, then it would put a kind of pressure on you to manage time. Then you would be automatically finding time for that. Passing the exam is not difficult. And I think if you are doing good in these sessions, 5, 6, 7, you're going to pass the exam, right? These sessions are slightly difficult as compared to real exams. So 6 is good enough here, right? So be confident, stay consistent, schedule your exam, and just do it, right? Thank you so much, Chinemeze. Once again, congratulations. All the insights that you shared would be really helpful for everybody here and those who would be listening to this video. And congratulations on your success. Enjoy your journey.
Thank you, Amma.
I really enjoyed working with you. I have found Chinemeze very, very dedicated and committed. So thank you so much, everybody. Take good care of yourself. Thank you, Chinemeze.
Thank
That's
you,
all.
Amma. Bye. Good night, guys.
Bye.
Thank you,
See you,
Mark.
Chinemeze.